All right, welcome everybody again to another episode of The Gang Saves Humanity. My name is James Ellars, and with me, as always, we have Heidi.
Hey guys.
And today we also have the amazing James Treakle.
What's up, y'all?
If you have seen any of the popular Yang Gang videos, it is probably from James Treakle. Also, we do have Gisele Huff with us. Gisele, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. Gisele is from the Gerald Huff Fund for Humanity. We spoke a little bit last time. We had some technical issues, so we wanted to make sure to get you back here to talk with you. How's everything going with you?
Well, as an American, that's not a question I can answer.
Right?
I mean, things are not going well with me or with any of us. It's horrendous. It's, I lived through in 1968, after Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated and Robert Kennedy the same year, the country blew up.
Yeah.
But we didn't have social media. So, we had 3 channels, no cable. And the channels, captured whatever, they send out crews. But what we're seeing on TV now is it's literally incomprehensible. It's as mind-blowing to me as pedophilia. I can't understand it on any level. On any level, I can't put my brain, my hands around it. It's just so shocking. There are no lessons learned. I mean, you keep seeing it over and over again, 7 days after it started.
Right. Yeah.
So this is more than, one person can deal with, really. It's very traumatic. I find it extremely shocking. And, I lived through a different kind of thing because I was born in France and I lived there when the Nazis came. I was a little girl and I'm Jewish, so 18 members of my family were, killed in the Holocaust. Wow. And we lived under 4 years under Nazi rule in a country that in 1936 had elected a socialist president. So people who say it can't happen here don't know what they're talking about. It is happening here. Before our eyes, because what is happening is not in the context of the laws, but in the context of the norms. Mm-hmm. And there's no way, there's nothing constitutional or unconstitutional about norms. What we're seeing in front of us happening in the streets, how do you classify that? Where does that fit in? So when you lose that, it's just incredible. And I am very worried. I have 2 grandchildren, young adults, and I worry a whole lot about not only their safety and the future of this country, but also their economic, what's going to happen to them economically, because they're just short, been out of college for a few 2-3 years, and what's available, what's going to be, and they're part of, they don't have to worry. They're not in a, they don't have a college debt or anything like that. So they start from a good place. But when you think about all the other young people who already, so if you think about the people who survived 2008 and were finally getting somewhere.
Yes.
Now we have them and we have the kids who are just graduating from college. So 2 half generations. And I'm an optimist, and I think that America is a very great potential country. The Americans saved my life. I'd be dead if it weren't for the GIs who came and saved Europe. But I'm not I'm not very optimistic now. I'm really,
Wow.
really concerned. But I'm sure you all are too. I mean, it's beyond comprehension.
I will say it's much more sobering as listening to someone that's been through what you've been through, that you are so pessimistic about like this point in time and this point in history. Like I am overwhelmed, but I do in my mind, I think, you know, we've overcome before, but listening to you, I'm not feeling so optimistic.
The only thing that can, you know, I mean, one thing that is true is that the power of the people is a real thing. And I think we're seeing it in a way that we've never seen it before. And I don't think it's going away. I mean, it's a perfect storm, right? People have time. People are very economically challenged. They're worried about a bunch of things, and then this comes along.
Yes.
So they got the virus, and then they have this disaster. I mean, this indescribable series of events. And people have to cope with that. And I think that, you know, from my point of view, Americans have stopped knowing how to cope. And that's partly a reflection of what the government, you know, the government has stopped working. Okay? The 2008 crash, which was the economic system, yeah? The coronavirus now,
Yeah.
the fact that when you think about things like when Obamacare was rolled out, the computer, the whole, you know, the way it was rolled out was, it crashed.
Yes. Yeah, I remember that.
Okay?
Yep.
In the age of the Internet of Things, we're walking around awash in technology that works for us, and the government can't get its act together. I mean, this is one of the things that Andrew said when he said why he was running for president.
Yeah.
He said when he went to Washington and he looked at their system, they don't even know what you're talking about.
No.
I mean, you talk to them and it's like, well, they're, you know, they're anywhere between 60 and 80 something years old. So what do you expect? Right? So they don't understand anything about this, and they're supposed to be governing us. It's not, that's not tenable. We're not, that's that you can't, you know, people have lost all confidence in their institutions. And that's when things happen. So, you know, I think something is going to happen out of this, no question about it. And it can't be the tweaking of laws. It can't be, so, you know, I just finished reading this great book that I've been touting, This is an Uprising, by Mark and Paul Angler. It's fantastic. It, you know, it describes exactly what a movement, as opposed to an organization, are. What is a transactional event and a transformational event?
Mm-hmm.
And this has got to be a transformational event. This has got to be, I mean, we're talking to each other as, you know, people who were supporters of Yang and believe in that vision and understand how, you know, he sees the future and go along with his ideas about it, and, you know, wanting that to happen to this country, because it's a transitional saving grace, right? It's the thing that would get us through that period when people are going to be so immiserated by the fourth industrial revolution that we're going to have to take care of them until we work it out with technology. Mm-hmm. And we have to commit ourselves to this. And that book tells you how to do that. I mean, of course, it's not a manual, but it's a, you know, in terms of the way you have to address this. And it was an eye-opener for me. So it actually confirmed what I'm trying to do with the Gerald Huff Fund for Humanity. Because if you want to change things, you've got to, they argue, you have to change the mindset of the pillars of society. So the church, the media, and he shows the example of the gay marriage movement when television programs started being about gay people. I mean, full half-hour comedies, we remember, about gay people. And the pillars of society, all the different pieces of civil society, who were completely against gay marriage. I mean, Clinton voted against it. In seemingly a very short period of time, which is totally wrong, actually changed in 2015, changed the Supreme Court, passed the Gay Marriage Act, law. And it seemed, people were surprised how quickly that happened. No, it wasn't quick. It started in 1969 in that tavern, that bar in Lower New York.
Yes.
And they finally said, okay, you can't come in and beat us on the head with batons anymore. And actually, it was two or three transvestites who started the fight, who started the actual confrontation. So we can do this. This is
Stonewall.
That's right. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But we have to get our act together.
I feel like I'm hopeful that in the case of like Black Lives Matter, this might be our turning point. Like you were speaking, like, Bill Clinton used to be against gay marriage, and he was, as another example, he passed the 1994 crime bill, right? That has led to the mass incarceration, the 3 strikes you're out, the minimum sentencing. And he, in 2016, said, I was wrong, right? And even Hillary, obviously, she had spoken out in favor of this crime bill, and she said that, that was wrong. So do you feel like what's going on right now, like the demonstrations and the protests are like part of the turning point, and we will like head like into the future with a victory?
So I can only go back to, what I remember from the civil rights movement. Remember, I lived in New York City, so it was not really in my backyard, it was happening in other places. But I think the turning point was when Americans sat in their living rooms watching television during dinner, and they saw Bull Connor, training water hoses and dogs on peaceful marching African Americans. I think people who didn't pay attention, or was kind of, as I said, we only had 3 channels. It was not, if you didn't, but when they saw that, they thought, this is not America. And it was with that impetus that Johnson was able to end Kennedy's assassination, which was another traumatic. We can't make anything happen unless we have big drama. It's the most awful thing. If only we could just find some measure where, we got things done without all the drama, without all of the tragedies. But apparently that's not possible. It's always these upheavals that bring this about. So I am, considering the fact that this is happening on everybody's phone, never mind sitting around the dining table and watching the news at 6 o'clock, and seeing what's happening in Selma. This is happening all the time, everywhere, on everybody's phone. So I do hope that this will lead to something. I'm concerned that it leads to the wrong things, or not the right things. Let's not call them the wrong things, just not the right things, because this needs a transformational solution. And everything that they're thinking about, and the pundits are talking about, are all transactional solutions. Stop the police, they wear the badge, they have to wear that. They don't care what you say, they don't do it. I mean, you could see them lined up on the streets with no badges, no name badges. So you could say whatever you want, and they do whatever they want. So I don't know how you make people do things unless you change the zeitgeist.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right?
Like,
I mean, you have to internalize those behaviors. You can't legislate behavior.
Yes.
Behavior is not something that you can say, all fathers have to take care of their children. They can't be absent fathers. Meaningless. You can say it until you're blue in the face. It doesn't mean a damn thing. And this has been, a lot of the stuff that's been going on since the 60s has been that kind of stuff. People talk, but there's nothing fundamentally different about what happens.
Yeah, they're going to patch together a bill that'll be popular now that in 20 years will be the crime bill of 1994.
People will say, unintended consequences. I never thought about that. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And this is something I've been concerned about for a while when it comes to like gun control. Because I mean, you think about it, and I think everybody's kind of realizing that right now because of just seeing how police act when they're given the the excuse to behave violently. They do so because we've been training them like that. We've been enforcing these norms within police culture for decades.
Yes.
And if you were to say pass a really, really strict like gun confiscation, not just gun control, but gun confiscation bill, like the kind of stuff that Beto O'Rourke was talking about on the campaign trail, who's going to be enforcing those laws? These guys. And who are they going to go to? Whose neighborhoods are they going to go to? The neighborhoods that are being destroyed right now. Mm-hmm. And those kinds of unintended consequences are almost entirely the result of norms that are highly negative, that are well entrenched, clashing with good intentions. And it's the same thing with the 1994 crime bill, right? Because we had this belief that what keeps people in line, what stops crime, is punishment. But that's not true. If anything, if you put the boot on people's throats, they will rebel more. They'll act out more. If you take away their ability to make a living because they can't get a job after they get out of prison, what they're going to do? They're going to go back to prison, right? And it leads to this cycle of violence and despair and poverty. But it was built on these ideas and these laws that came from a well-intentioned place. I mean, like the Black community overwhelmingly supported the 1994 crime bill. This is something that
they did.
I mean, and that's not because people were stupid. It's just because that's what the culture told everybody in America was the right thing to do. If you want to stop crime, you call a cop. The cop puts, the hammer down on crime, and that's that. But now we know that's not true. Bad behavior is a result of systemic issues. People are a product of their society, of their culture. And if we want to fix any of these things, whether it's, crime, which has gone down over the years despite the 1994 crime bill, not because of it. I mean, we have more people in prison than ever, but that's not why crime has gone down. It's gone down because we have all these norms that have led to the decline of violence in our society over time. And that's why I feel, too, that we have reacted so viscerally and immediately to seeing these images of people being brutalized by the police. We're like, wait a minute, we thought at one time that this was okay as a culture. Well, we can't endure that anymore. So I guess my question would be, since it's fresh in your mind and you just read it, what would be what you would hope from people who are Andrew Yang supporters? What are the things that we can do immediately to help kickstart or join this next effort to address these systemic issues and make for something that lasts, that's transformational?
Well, for me, it's a matter of convincing as many people as possible of the value, of the inevitability of UBI.
Mhm.
I mean, the Overton window. I mean, something that starts out by being some crazy thing that nobody can, little by little just moves up and out of the other side of the window, and it becomes inevitable. And I think it's inevitable with all of the things that are going on. So again, going back to the book, convincing the pillars that it's inevitable, because you're never going to convince probably 30% of the population who will always look at it as a handout, another one of those liberal, bleeding heart
Socialism,
things.
yeah.
And never understand that they're going to get it too, that it'll help them, that it brings us all together. It gives glue to the system because everybody's the same. It actually demonstrates that by not making it means tested or targeted or any of the things that we've seen thus far. There is, except for Alaska, there's really no universal, UBI. But I think that first of all, we have to get organized. I mean, that is the biggest thing he concentrates on, because although he contrasts organizations which are transactional and movements which are transformational, at least in their goals, right?
Mm-hmm.
He totally goes into the fact that you need organization for a movement. I mean, it can't be, and one of the things that he, and I'm going to look at my notes because I couldn't memorize all this stuff, but he has an example of what happened in Serbia when they threw out what's his name?
Milosevic.
When he was this terrible dictator, and they overthrew him. Actually, the people overthrew him. And he says that the gliding tendency, so this is the same thing. They had to do what the Yang gang is doing, what the Yang idea is, and how it spreads throughout, and how you make the satellites independent, right? So that you don't run them from a centralized system. But in order to do that, he says, you have to provide guiding tenets. Everybody, like the Yang gang did about the values,
Yeah.
You've got to sign into them, but you also have to make them clear. So that you brand them.
Mm-hmm.
Like in McDonald's, they have all different kinds of McDonald's run by all different kinds of people, but it's a franchise. And you can't be McDonald's unless you follow their formula exactly. Yeah. You weigh this amount of beef, and this is the kind of roll. So the brand is the thing. The guidelines about how the brand is carried forward is the framework. And then all of the independent satellites can do what is most appropriate for their circumstances and their environment.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't got that.
No.
We don't have that. And that's a very important thing to do. And then the other thing he talks about is mass training. So, okay, now you've done that. You've got the brands, you've got the people, but now you have to spread it to many more people. You can't just do it with the handful of people you started with. Mm-hmm. In order to get them to carry the brand and to take it to their circles and to expand it, you have to train them. And he says that the group that in Serbia was training people for 10 hours, 1 week for 10 hours, to take them all through the paces of what the brand was and what the guidelines were for getting it, sharing it with people. We're not even close to that. We are not even talking about that.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's doing their own thing. I mean, I'm involved with several organizations, all of which are doing their own thing. I mean, they're not antagonistic to each other, but they're also not, there's no synergy. And synergy is what, increases success. I mean, you need to be greater than the sum of your parts.
I agree. Like, that's something that we found, like, since Andrew dropped out, is that we haven't been able to like coalesce. And there's so many organizations that are kind of working on the same thing, and we just haven't been able to pull everyone together into like an idea with, like you were saying, like tenets, like literally train people up and send them out there. We definitely haven't been able to do that. And to me, we can do it because there is there's definitely a desire out there for people to be a part of whoever can like pull this together. Like you were saying, like the Yang Gang especially just has so much energy, and they want to be a part of something. It's just, there's nothing really that's organized or has been able to, you know, corral that energy and put it to, you know, to good use. So absolutely, I agree with you. It's something that we have been frustrated with. Like, where's our movement? Like you're saying, this is a movement, you know, and where is it gone? Where is it going? It feels kind of just, a lot of people are lost, and we could definitely benefit from being able to do that. So,
and what it's not dire. I mean, it's brand new, right? He dropped out in February.
yeah.
Okay, and there was never a whole lot of connection between the Yang Gang. They were all doing their own thing, and the campaign itself. I mean, it was occasional. It was not an organized thing that was chop, 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 chop. Right?
Yeah.
Right.
No.
So already you didn't start from a point, you know, a place of strength. You started in a kind of an amorphous space where, you know, he is the leading light, and he's the champion, and he's so persuasive and, you know, so charismatic, and he got, you know, and continues to get a tremendous amount of media coverage, very important. You know, he's put the conversation on the national stage. I mean, you can't, he's like a miracle. You know, he just dropped out from the sky, and he took on this thing, and it's a miracle that he was able to get on the debate stage, and all you guys, you know, you did incredible work. Okay, so now you've got to gather your thoughts, you know, and you have to decide what you're going to do next. What is your commitment to this? I don't mean you, I mean all of us.
Yes.
I mean everybody. What is our commitment? Because this isn't going to happen overnight. This is a long-term commitment to get to, you know, the point where we've done all of the work that was done by the people in Serbia, and we've convinced the pillars. You know, the pillars, if the image he draws is the pillars hold up the government, you know, the sort of the ruling arrangement. Yeah. And if you can push down one pillar after the other, the ruling arrangement collapses and it has to rise out of the, you know, of the downfall of the old ways of doing things. Mm-hmm. And we have in my opinion, we have everything we need in order to make this happen. Mm-hmm. Right? We have a charismatic person who is continuing and is doing, you know, his thing, but keeps talking about this and keeps it in the forefront of the national, you know, the media and so on.
Yeah.
And he's very good at it.
Mm-hmm.
Very good at it. So now we can't depend on that. That's just our lead. You know, that's our lead.
Yes.
Now we have to parlay that into something much more diffuse and more that penetrates society in a much more organized way, which is what we have to think about now. We have to think about how do we do this? And I think we have to ask him and the people around him, because he's the one who, you know, created this idea in its current
Yeah.
form. How do we brand this? What are the guidelines? Now, I looked at the mission statement that was shared. I belong to the gang. I mean, I get emails from the gang in San Francisco.
Yeah.
And apparently, I was, the last time I was involved, I participated in a conversation. They were talking about getting a mission statement, a vision statement, and a mission statement done. And they came up with a mission statement, which they shared in this email, that I thought was quite good. I gave it a 4 out of 5, and I'm a tough cookie, let me tell you.
Yes.
A 4 out of 5 is incredible.
That's pretty
It's
good.
perfect, so I can't, you know. But I was very impressed. I thought it was a very good, at least the first part. The second part is about supporting the political class, you know, getting behind congressional people and all that. And I can't go there with the fund, but also I think that's something that somebody else has to do, but I'm all focused on how do we brand this and how do we market it.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that mission statement, I don't know whether you've seen it, but I thought it was quite, it's a draft, so it's not, I don't think you're allowed to just share it all over the place, but it is very good. And it's short, you know, and it's, I think that it's a good beginning for the branding.
Okay.
Now, where it goes, I don't know. I mean, I think that every organization that's involved in this should get behind this mission statement. I think that it should be publicized and everybody should sign onto it. That would begin to put the brand and the guidelines, the clarity about what it is we're doing. And then the training. We have to really get serious about training people. And so, and visibility, right? I mean, one of the things, and I'm surprised, I only saw one picture on Twitter with somebody wearing a Yang Gang shirt. I haven't seen, have you seen any, you know, in the march?
At the protests? Yeah.
Oh, at the I wore, when I went to Minneapolis, I wore a math shirt.
I did too yesterday. I should have worn more sunblock too, but I wore
Yeah, I've still been wearing my Yang gear since, because people ask you, they're like, what's math?
Yeah, what, yeah. So, I mean, I just saw one yesterday with a Yang Gang, you know, on the blue shirt with the Yang Gang on it.
Yeah.
But I think that one of the things I suggested on Twitter was that the Yang Gang is perfectly, you know, placed to do voter registration.
Yeah.
Right? That's, I mean, just be there, you know, be there, wear your Yang Gang shirt and register people.
Yeah, that's what James did in where Apple Valley yesterday.
Right.
That's where my
I
forehead.
saw your exchange of email, your messages on that.
Yeah.
How did that go?
It went really well, and the point, like it popped in my mind because I've never seen so many younger people engaged in anything locally here, because it is an area. Well, just in general, I think in the times we're in right now, a lot of younger people just disengaged, and for them to be out there, and they were excited about registering too. So we burned through the stack that we had. I mean, there was at least 50 or 60 in the stack we had, and we did more later. But I mean, yeah, that's something where these people are excited now. We also need them to vote. It's so like, and everybody I talked to at the rally said the same thing, and just like, and I was making sure the people on the loudspeaker said it, like, hey, between the chants, like, tell everybody to make sure to register to vote, because we're not going to get everybody with the forms. But if you don't take the energy that these people have right now, and again, it's unfortunate the circumstances that, you know, the energy came from, but we can't let it just die out. And this isn't something where we're politicizing it. No, we're literally trying to transfer this energy into actual change, because these rallies, I mean these protests, it seems like they happen every few years because the same things keep happening, and nothing changes. So these things are just going to keep happening unless we do something different with what we're trying to do with the outcome. So yeah, registering these people is huge. I completely agree. It's like a lot of what you say in that chat, and with just what you say right now, it's kind of organizing my thoughts, because it seems daunting, just kind of what we're up against right now. And I feel like, I personally feel it. Me and Heidi were talking about it before you jumped on the call, and it's just, it feels kind of, it wears on you. So I'm glad you also said that, you know, it's something that a lot of people are going through, because I thought it was just me. I'm like, okay, I'm sunburned, I'm tired, you know, like I don't really, I'm trying to figure out a direction to go, and like, again, everything you're saying are definitely things we need to do, especially, again, back to the voter registration, because it is very, very rare, especially in a pandemic, that you get that many people in one area, and it's not taking advantage one way or another. If they want to register Republican, cool. If they want to register Democrat, cool. Whatever they want. It's not a partisan thing. Just register to vote and vote. Like, that's all we're saying. We're not pushing you one way or another. Like, literally what Andrew says, it's not left, it's not right, it's forward. Like, we just want things moving in the right direction. So registering, like, that's a project we need to be doing more on, for sure.
And that's, you know, one of the things I'm looking into is the possibility there's an app for counting steps. So you can march for a cause when you go for your daily walk. If you get on the app, it's called WATT, W-A-T-T, and you can put people, you know, get the people to sign up for a cause, and then the app counts the steps that anybody takes. So anytime you just have to click on the app when you start walking, and you're, you know, you say UBI, that's your cause. Now I walk an hour a day. I could, you know, as soon as I walk out of my house, I click on the app and I start walking. And then it knows, and it reports, and it brings the, you know, the numbers together, and it makes it bigger and bigger. I mean, you could, you know, so there's a thing, two things. We have to keep the momentum going in spite of the disappointments, right? That's huge. Second, you have to make it easy enough.
Yes, an easy buy-in.
If it's too complicated, or if it asks too much of people, you're only going to get the altruists and the, you know, the zealots. You're not going to get the people who can add 1 hour of steps when they're taking their normal everyday walk, or, you know, or going hiking, right?
Yeah.
Walk 5 miles, and those are all the steps that you accumulate. It's easy enough to do. You just click on the app. It's just like writing the letters to the Congress people. It takes 1 minute.
Yeah, the template pre-fills it for you. Yeah.
10 million people who are doing it. 20 million people who are doing it. You know, but I think that we have an opportunity that we are best placed to take advantage of this. Because you know, ask the people who are marching what it is they want. And they can only tell you that they don't want police brutality. Well, I want to be tall, blonde, and 26. You know, what does that even mean? Of course you don't want police brutality. But what are you going to do about it?
Yeah.
I mean, you can talk about it, but you can't, if you don't do anything about it, it'll be the same thing 5 years from now, 3 years from now.
Yeah.
We don't do that. We have a thing. We have a thing that's very fundamental and transformational.
Yeah.
Many levels, right? Both economic security and mindset change. And it has to be, is inevitable because of where the robots are going, you know.
Yeah.
Forget about the virus. Wait, wait, after the virus, the robots are going to come.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
you know,
Mhm.
Yeah.
there's no other way. We have to do it.
Yeah, and that's
We
something.
have a single cause that is the main thrust of what we're doing. That gives us a huge advantage. And everything, you build everything around that. You know, you brand it and you build it. So I think we're in a very good position, but we can't get discouraged. You know, I understand, James, you're exhausted. I mean, it's exhausting what's going on. It just drains you.
Mhm.
But you gotta rise above it.
Yeah.
Not to, you know, you have to say, okay, I'm getting up this morning and what happened yesterday doesn't count. Forward, right? Not left, not right, but this is the moment to do forward. Forward is what we want to do.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. Especially with we've been pushing Andrew Yang more it feels like in the last couple of weeks, just because the message is so necessary right now. And what a lot of people don't understand, like, we're not politicizing everything. We're literally saying, hey, everything, most of what's going on right now, a lot of the suffering that people are going through, there's actually different policies and platforms under Andrew Yang's campaign that could solve a lot of these. And we need this to get out there, and people don't really understand. Like you said, you go to these protests and people say, you know, we need to end police brutality. Like, okay, of course, but what's the big picture? And like, we need to get this messaging out there. And I feel like a lot of things you're talking about, like the organization, especially the education portion, the training, like that's something, because Heidi and I have been talking about, like, we have been doing a ton of like YouTube interviews with a lot of people. And like, I'm super glad we're having this talk with you, because it's given me a lot more clarity.
Yeah.
But I feel like exactly what you're saying is, okay, the YouTube videos probably, I mean, they help a little bit, but the back end structure and everything you're talking about is something that needs a lot more of our attention. So I think that's what we got to do next. And like, it's completely possible. Like, we'll get it.
It's the only way.
Yeah.
I mean, otherwise you're just, you know, you're not going to get that coherence that you
Yeah.
need.
I'm feeling that.
That's what a movement is. People have to cohere.
Yeah.
And the only way they can cohere is if there's a clear message that is the same message, you know, that they're all speaking the same language. That's one of the big problems with when we try to introduce technology into the K-12 curriculum, and then we started talking about blended learning.
Yeah.
Well, there were 17,000 definitions. I mean, everybody and his brother had a definition of what blended learning was.
Yeah.
Not the same. So it's a big problem. You know, semantics are very important.
Mhm.
And we do have the advantage of having something that's very clear unto itself. UBI is very clear. It has, you know, it explains why it has to be universal, why it can't be means tested, why you have to be able to help people through the fourth industrial revolution. It's all very, very clear. But we all have to agree that that's what we're saying.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's not easy. Herding cats and all of those things. It's not. Especially people, especially progressives, which we were not. I mean, I was never a progressive. I don't know.
I was.
You were a progressive. From the get-go, you were a progressive?
I've been on every end of the spectrum. I was raised by very conservative Christian Reagan Republicans.
Yeah.
I've been libertarian. I've been a liberal, far liberal. I almost went so far as being a Marxist to, like, you know, came to my senses. I've been everywhere on the political spectrum.
Okay, so you.
And progressives have been the most frustrating.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because they, you know, they can never agree. I mean, they're purists. They're purists. Look what happened during the election cycle, right? I mean, people were screaming at each other, cursing each other. I mean, what is that? It's not, That's not what America is about. That's not what human beings are about.
No, and you can't use an argument for morality, like, because people have different morals, right? So all you're doing is just beating people on the head and making them more stuck in their ways, right? It's not, you're not winning any battles, you're not making any progress, despite progress being in your title. You know, it's not happening.
Yeah, and I've been thinking about that because it's kind of a sobering thought that if you look at the sheer fundraising power of Bernie's campaign, Bernie Sanders should be the nominee.
Exactly.
But he and his followers were especially good at alienating people from the very party that he was trying to win the nomination from. And that is a lesson that we really need to take to heart. We need to be making friends as long as Andrew is our candidate who's trying to win. As far as Yang 2024 is concerned, we need to be making friends with Democrats, and that means the icky establishment, which, you know, he's doing a really good job of doing that. But, you know, we need to back him up in that regard because, I mean, the progressives want to cancel him for doing that. And it's a self-defeating, self-marginalizing exercise.
Yeah, and if you guys have ever seen Game of Thrones, has anybody seen Game of Thrones?
Yeah, and I have.
The High Sparrow is literally in the church and I was one of those really left progressives at the time. It went over my head rewatching, and it's like that was what he was trying to point out, is that was us, right? The public just virtue signaling, the needing to atone to somebody and never actually getting anything done. It's just this self-indulgent almost morality and getting no work done.
You know, like the people like Margaret Thatcher who talk about socialism, about spending other people's money, right? And there's some truth to that.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it's a lot of people. The problem is that liberals, not so much progressive, because they seem to be separated from reality in general.
Yes, but we are.
Liberals, you know, they always want to social engineer. They think that you can make people behave certain ways, and no, you can't legislate that. So that's their problem, you know. So they keep on doing things that lead to unintended consequences, and that's what we're living with now. We need a completely different paradigm.
Yes.
We need and that's what, you know, UBI opens the door to. It's not a solution. It's a bridge. It's a way of getting to the eventual solution.
Yeah.
And
we definitely need to. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say we need to work together. Like liberals and progressives eat their own.
Yeah, they do, and they eat their own besides each other. But they are because they don't trust people.
Yes, they don't. It's very paternalistic. Yes,
that's right. Yeah. I mean, hence the 1994 crime bill, right? Like they're able to justify that on the grounds of social engineering, that what we need is a really strong authoritative state that'll make people conform, because, you know, all people need is that pressure, and then, you know, people will stop, human nature will just stop being what it is, apparently, as opposed to understanding human nature and then designing a society that flows along with it, right? Yes. And I think that's the beauty of UBI. And I was thinking about, as well, you're talking about, Gisele, the need to shift the norms. I think the beauty of UBI and the advantage that we have that is very similar to the civil rights movement and other civil rights movements, you know, in different places and times, and that distinguishes it from something like say Medicare for all, which, you know, I think is a well-intentioned cause. But what separates UBI from that policy is that the philosophical grounding of UBI, the policy itself, is not just that something that norms will need to shift in order to reach. It is itself the grounding for a new set of norms.
Yes.
That's what makes it transformational.
Yeah.
And that phrase of, UBI doesn't solve every problem, makes every problem easier to solve is extremely true. And I think we'll begin to win when we begin to make those pillars understand the role that UBI plays as kind of an architectural role, that it will support whatever it is, this new thing that we are all yearning for, whether we're Republican or Democrat or whatever. We all have a sense intuitively that something is wrong. And UBI helps, like you said, create that bridge that'll take us to that new paradigm.
Yeah. And that's a big advantage to have something like that. You were saying before about the system, and this is a systemic problem. This is about the system.
Mhm.
This isn't about mistakes people made, Clinton, whoever, Obama, Reagan. It's not about that. It's the system that's wrong. And in education, the thing that the picture that we had in terms of transforming K-12 education is education should be like sand. And
Yeah.
all shapes of kids, triangular ones, round ones, all should be fit into the sand and take a position, be part of a greater idea that they need to be educated. It shouldn't be that everybody is a round child and then you shave them, if they're triangular, you shave them to
Yeah.
stick them into the round thing, because that's
Yeah.
what there is instead of sand. And then if they don't fit, you throw them out. No,
Yeah. I love that analogy, by the way.
Mhm.
that is the problem with our systems. And the same thing is true with what the pursuit of happiness means. It means something different for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we should trust people to be able to define that for themselves and make it true that the American dream is still alive and well, that we were all created equal,
Hmm.
and that this country was founded life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. I mean, those are all words.
Yeah.
We have to make them true.
Yep. Well, you took us on an adventure, Gisele. We started out kind of low, and now we're coming back up again. So
No, we will do it. I have no doubt. I mean, I would just, it's just that from the moment, the existential reaction is one of despair, with what's going on. I just shut off the television before I got on Zoom. So, it's just,
yeah.
the worst part of it is truly, it's incomprehensible. I hate things that I cannot explain. I don't care how bad they are, but I have to be able to explain them.
Yeah.
Otherwise, where is the reality of the world if you can't explain something?
Hmm.
And this is inexplicable. Absolutely inexplicable. I mean, they don't care that people are taking pictures of them beating up two young women.
Yeah, that's
12
been
of them.
surprising. They
12
know
of
that
them.
everybody's filming.
Mhm.
Unbelievable. And they know they're being filmed. They can see the
They don't care.
cameras. They don't care.
Mhm.
So you're going to talk to me about changing people's behavior? If this doesn't change their behavior, if they don't even care about, CYA, I mean, what, they're liable. They don't care. Okay, so I don't.
I mean, no. I mean, I feel like we're all feeling the same way, especially with not being able to really describe what's going on, which is frustrating for me because I'm like way too analytical. So if I can't analyze what's going on, it's frustrating. But some of the things we need to do moving forward are pretty clear, like
Yeah.
defining the movement, making training and education more available. I mean, these things are things that I think we've discussed behind closed doors, and it's kind of we've been working on other things, but yeah, that's definitely something that, again, it's just working out in my head as we're speaking, that we can put together and do moving forward. Because just like you said, right now it's literally like herding cats, and I've used that analogy in like talking to people when they're just like, why is this person over here doing this thing in the Yang Gang? Like, why aren't you controlling them? Like, I can't control everyone. But creating a set of like principles and mission statement and, everything simple moving forward, I think that'll be huge. And then also, I mean, the training is something that, again, I've had in the back of my mind. Like, I've actually like have a portion of the website set up for that, but I haven't like built it out yet because it didn't really click until you really said that. So I really appreciate you talking to us, because again, it's organizing things that were just kind of in the back of my head jumbled, but it's making sense out of them, especially moving forward. So I definitely appreciate you coming on and speaking to us. And again, thank you for everything you do for the movement in general. I think it's the influence you have is very important, and everything that you're telling us is very, very crucial. So again, thank you for everything you do.
Yes, thank you. We need you in this movement. You're a guiding force. Like, you and I had a conversation. I was like, it was an interesting conversation. I was like raring to do something, and you were the stabilizing. Are you in this for the long term, right? Trying to see where my priorities were, and if I had because you have to stick with it. Like, in the conversation you and I had, this stuff doesn't happen overnight, so you have to stick with it. So it was a great conversation. I was so glad I talked to you last week after the first time we tried to record.
Yes,
we need you, so please, I think that you have a lot of information that we need.
I'm totally at your disposal. I mean,
Awesome.
because I really care about this, and it really is my life, at my age, and with the rest, I don't know how much time I have, but it's everything that, it's all both an emotional way of expressing something what happened to Gerald is not, there's no word for people who lose children.
Yeah.
There's a word for when you lose a spouse, you're
a widower,
and when you lose parents, you're an orphan. But when you lose a child, there's no word for it. There's no word in the English language that describes that. No. So there's a huge emotional thing that that is very important to me. But it also gives meaning to my life, and there's nothing more gratifying than that. If you have a purpose in life, there's nothing like it.
Yes. Yeah.
More than making money, more than being famous. Nothing is as wonderful as accomplishing something. Like when I got the Santa Clara County, to do the UBI for the foster kids, and every success of that kind it's just wonderful. So makes my life worth living.
I feel that.
And thanks to you guys, because I sit in my den in my house like a spider, and I do nothing.
Oh no, we will totally. we will totally call you.
And I weave connections and talk to people, and try to always talk about doing and not about talking.
Yes, yeah, that's my pet. We discussed that as well. My pet peeve is meetings where we just talk about, like, it's just a meeting, just have a meeting, just have a meeting. Let's actually do something instead of talk about it over and over again. So no, we're super glad you're in this movement. Thank you for everything that you've done and will continue to do, and we will call on you. I hope you don't mind, because
absolutely, you may call on me. And James, I also, I really appreciated that video because that's the video that, I got 1,787,481 views of the video
Wow.
on
Good
Twitter.
job, Treakle.
So, it was really quite appealing. I mean, it was something that really caught people's eyes. And
Good.
everybody in this movement, it's like everything else, what we believe in, that everyone contributes, that everyone's contribution has meaning and is valuable. And so has the person who makes the contribution. And that's, that's what we believe in, and that's what we're acting out. So we should pat ourselves on the back for that. Great working with you guys, really.
Yeah, you too.
Yes, you too. Thank you so much for speaking with us, and I definitely want to stay in touch. Because again, at the beginning of the conversation, we're just like, oh my God, we're tired. And now I'm like, oh shit.
So rejuvenate, yeah.
I have a lot, there's a lot of ideas in my mind, especially everything you've gone over, that there's so many
Read the book.
Yeah, I need to read the book.
I started it.
We're going to, everything you said, there's a definite path to put those things in motion. And we're going to do that. So again, thank you for everything you do, Gisele. Thank you for being
my
on.
pleasure. Really, I appreciate the opportunity.
Awesome. And thank you, James, for, being here as well, and just being James, like I always said, he's the messenger, right? He's, thank you for being that for us always.
Yes, if someone could write out my thoughts in a way that would sound better than my actual thoughts, I would want to.
I would just pretend I thought that. That's all.
I know,
it's his big brain.
Awesome. Well, thanks everybody for joining.
Guys.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Thanks everybody, and
Bye.
talk to everybody soon.
Talk to you